What's going on, everybody? And in this week's lesson, we are going to check out what it takes to solo like Adam Jones. Now, we're going to kind of give a nice overview of what you're going to most likely see or come across in a lot of his solos, all right? So we're going to talk about, obviously, the pentatonic scale, open strings, minor seconds, unison bends, long held out notes, dissonance, all that kind of stuff that we're going to come across, all right? So I am in a drop D tuning. Down in the description below, you can find links for all the examples and all the other tool tabs and transcriptions that I've put up. All right, so let's jump right in. So the first thing first, we need to talk about the pentatonic scale. It is the harmonic framework for basically everything. Okay, they play in a drop D tuning, and you're going to be playing in that D minor pentatonic all the time. All right, so being familiar with those areas of the fretboard is essential, both vertically and horizontally, and we'll talk about why. All right, so just really fast, fifth position starting on the 5th fret of the A string, that note is D. So I can play pentatonic right there. Essential. And I point that out because you have riffs, and I know this is not solos, but you have riffs like Vicarious or H. Or right? And those outline not only that D minor pentatonic framework, but you also have the D minor chord. Right? Now that's a D minor 7th chord, right? Now Tool's not really doing a lot of jazz harmony, but all of those notes are in there, and that is the sound of a pentatonic scale. So if I just go 5-8, 7, 5-7, that's a D minor 7 chord, and again, that's the sound of pentatonic minor. And you can see him outlining this in a riff like Vicarious. Right? It's all right there. And you can also take that little fragment and go up the octave. Right? And there's a lot right there. Think of it like Tempest, right? You have those melodies that just outline that specific chord shape. Next, let's talk about the pentatonic scale, but moving horizontally, and there's a reason why, all right? So let's just take 3rd fret B string. That note is D, and we can play the pentatonic scale this way: 3-6, 6-8, 8-10, 10-13, 13-15. Okay, so one thing that Jones uses all the time in his riffs and his chord playing are these big extended power chords. Things of that nature, right? It's just a big power chord. But on top, the highest notes, you have this interval of a 4th, right? 2nd fret, 3rd fret. Those notes are 4 notes away from each other, so it's a 4th. That's the interval. But if I allow my middle finger to follow those notes and I play that 4th chord shape, very Jones there, right? Especially going up the octave, right? You can think of, what is it, Third Eye? Right? And another really good example is Swamp Song. And the solo starts out there, and I'm gonna tie this into another thing, and that's unison bends, okay? Unison bends are also very big. So we're gonna combine the 4th idea with the unison bend. And for those of you who don't know what a unison bend is, really fast, basically we're gonna do it on the 2nd and 3rd strings for this example. Let's say I put 10 on the B string, 12 on the G string. I'm gonna bend the 3rd string up a whole step until they become the same note, right? So you see this a lot in Jambi, H, so if we look at the solo from Swamp Song, he plays the fourth interval in lower position, and then he slides it up an octave, and then he goes down unison bends, right? Right? So again, I'm not playing the exact solo and the rhythm for it, but that's what he's doing going down. And you'll see unison bends all over the place. Think sober. Right? And he really takes advantage of the dissonance that comes through when you do that, right? So if I bend up to the unison, same note, but if I just bring it back down, I'm gonna get a lot of crunchy, clashing dissonance in there. Right? And Jones exploits that dissonance because we all know that dissonance is emotion, right? You can really emote with using those dissonance. So speaking of the dissonance, let's just continue on that train for a hot second and look at the solo from Stinkfist. And it's very textual in nature, right? Kind of how it sounds, not necessarily like melodic phrasing. And he is just exploiting the dissonance of a minor second, right? We have a 12 on the D string, 9 on the G string, right? And you can play that up on the lower strings. I think Jones plays it up here. It's just more comfortable here for me, no biggie. So I'm gonna play 12 and 9. Cross-stringing that, and then I'm gonna move each one of those notes up a scale tone, right? 9 goes to 10, 12 goes to 14. And he's just cross-picking that interval of a minor second, and it's really crunchy because those notes are right next to each other, and you get a lot of tension and nice texture. And you'll see that again, in his riffs, and his solos in other places. Check out the intro riff for Culling Voices, right? Very cool. So what else does Jones use? Open strings. Let's talk about that. The use of open strings in your solos, right? And I think a good example of this is Lateralis, right? And he starts off basically using the open D string as part of the riff, as part of his idea. And again, I'm exaggerating that so you can notice that open string. He uses the open D string as well as the open G string in that. Right, and then a really good example of using open strings as part of your rhythmic motif or rhythmic ideas in a solo. Check out the Tempest solo, and honestly, just check out the Tempest solo because that's got all of these techniques that we're gonna talk about in this one gigantic solo. So another thing that Jones uses a lot is this ascending hammer-on, and you can see it in his triplet riffs, you can see it in riffs himself, you can see it in solos, and it's basically just this idea. It's got a very retro rock kind of vibe to it, and again, he uses in his riffs and his solos, and again, I'm gonna call up Tempest again because that's really cool. He's got that. It's got that kind of thing. He puts it on the end of Vicarious. You can look at Rosetta Stone solo. Where's that? Right? And that pulls in the open strings that we were just talking about. 10, 12, 10, 12, 10 open. Right? Maybe an easier version of that is the H, the breakdown of H. Right? And that's a really good segue to, again, something else that I want to talk about. A lot of times, Jones's solos are not like I'm playing these scale patterns or pentatonic patterns and these licks, right? His solos tend to be very lyrical in nature. You can sing them. They have long held out notes, right? Mimicking vocal phrasing, or Maynard's mimicking him, right? It's just very lyrical in a sense. And H is a good example of that. You could also, I mean, a lot of examples, again, Tempest and Third Eye, right? You have that. And he kind of goes on, and then he can elaborate that a little bit. But again, you have these long notes that you can sing out that would almost be vocal phrases, right? Very short, 4, 3, 4, 5 note ideas that you can just build upon and really, again, get the emotion out of those notes, right? The hanging of it, the openness, the space that it puts into it. Now, there's a couple honorable mentions here that I didn't really get into, but tremolo picking is a good one to get on your fingers, right? There's the lateral solo. It does that. And again, the bend, the gradual bending, right? And that's a great example of it right there. You're gonna pull on these notes and just a little bit, almost like a blues player would, but without the blues phrasing. All right, so there you go. There's a multitude of techniques that you will find throughout Adam Jones's solos. All right, I know we didn't talk about gear or tone or anything like that, but again, kick up your gain. And if you don't have that many effects, honestly, a good delay goes a long way. You can stack delays if you want. You can have a nice short 300 to 400 millisecond, and then a nice long like 720 milliseconds. Those sound really good. And I know Kurt Hammett gets a lot of crap for using the wah-wah jokes or out the wazoo. But, you know, if I were to play this stuff live, I don't think there's one of these solos that I wouldn't use a wah pedal on. And mostly for a filter effect than anything else, right? It gives it a little cut, it gives it a little grit. All right, so like I said before, down in the description, you can find a link for all these tabs. If you like what's going on here, please click that subscribe and notification bell. And as always, let me know what you come up with. Until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.